Hello there, everyone. I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Machiavelli's Discourse. Today we're looking at chapter 52. Again, we're wrapping up book 1 of the Discourses, which has 58 chapters. So today 52. So what is about 52? Well, 52 is, the title is called To Repress the Insolence of One Individual Who Rises Up in a Powerful Republic. There is no more secure and no less scandalous mode than to anticipate the ways in which he comes to that power. In other words, there is no more secure and no less scandalous mode that can anticipate the ways that a powerful person who comes to power and the danger of this, the insolence of this, how to repress his insolence. So, one sees by the discourse written above how much credit the nobility acquired with the plebs by demonstrations read of, which were to the benefit both from the wages it had ordered and also from the mode of laying taxes. So, the example he just gave before about the two ways that there was the people got benefit, and also how the Senate passed the taxes, making sure that the wealthy paid the greatest thing, and the taxes weren't going to hit the people the most. If the nobility had been maintained in this order, every tumult in that city would have been removed, and the credit that the tributes had with the plebes would have taken from them, and by consequences their authority. In other words, the tributes. In other words, the credit that the tributes had with the pleb would have been taken from them as a consequence of their authority. In other words, the Senate by behaving that way. In other words, he's basically saying that if the Senate continued in behaving that way, it would have been to their favor. It would have taken away the power of the tributes. And truly, in a republic, and especially in those that are corrupt, the ambition of any citizen cannot be opposed with a better and less scandalous and easier mode than to anticipate the ways that he is seen to tread to arrive at the rank he plans. In other words, here is that. In other words, just pay attention. In other words, in a corrupt city, you can see the ambitions of the citizens, and it's less scandalous. Just follow the path they're looking at. If that mode had been used against Cosimo de' Medici, it would have been a very much better policy for his adversaries than to drive him out of Florence. In other words, it would have been better to kind of moderate him and control him in that sense. Don't drive him out, right? For if those citizens who had vied with him had taken his style of favoring the people, they would have come without tumult and without violence to take out of his hands those arms which he most availed himself, right? This is again 2, in other words, Florentine history 4. So what is he doing here? He's saying that, copy them or preempt them. In other words, a republic and a corrupt one. The ambitions of this, it's easy to figure them out. You can see how they're going. So get there before they do. Make sure that people are not going to look to them. Just don't ignore them. Don't give them an easy ground to go there and occupy and get favor. He's saying. In other words, if they should follow the question. Medici would not have been able to do this if he had been if the Florentines, the people went, the people who opposed him went in favor of the people as well. In other words, it had taken him in his style of favoring the people. They would have come without the tumults and without violence to take out of his hands those arms which he availed himself later, right? Then 2, Predo Soderini had made a reputation for himself in the city of Florence, with this only, favoring the collectivity. In other words, Soderini came to the Florentine thing with, but how he came there by favoring the collectivity. That gave him a reputation in the collectivity as a lover of the freedom of the city. And truly, to the citizens who bore envy for his greatness, it was much easier, and a thing much more honest, less dangerous, and less harmful for the Republic to anticipate him in the way with which he made himself great than to wish to put themselves up against him, so that the rest of the Republic was ruined with his ruin. So in other words, it's better to simply just, find his way of doing it and working at his way, than trying to get rid of him, trying to replace him, and therefore to ruin him, you destroy the Republic. For if they had removed from his hands the arms with which he had made himself mighty, which they could easily have done, they would have been able to oppose him without suspicion, without any hesitation in all the councils, and in all public decisions. In other words, if they themselves favored the people and favored the collectivity in that sense, and not make it look like they were acting. Let's continue. If someone replied that if the citizens who hated Prio made an error by not anticipating him in the ways with he gained his reputation for himself among the people, Pero too came to make an error by not anticipating the ways by which those adversaries of his made him fear, for which Preto merits an excuse, whether because it was difficult for him to do so, or because they were not honest to him. Yet the ways which the ways which he was hurt were the favorings of the Medici. The flavoring of the Medici. In other words, by knocking him down, but you hurt him, they made the Medicis look better. Okay, were the favoring of the Medicis, which favors they beat him down, and in the end ruined him. So therefore, they relied on the Medici. They turned to the Medici, and the Medici, as he says, beat him down, and then in the end ruined him. Pareto, therefore, could not honestly take this part, because he could not, with good fame, destroy the freedom for which he had been posted guard. In other words, he simply just could not do it. He couldn't have turned to the Medici as they did, because he saw them. The Medici. He was the guard against them, and guard to preserve the liberty. Was the guard. Since these favors could not be done in secret and at a stroke, they were very dangerous for Piero. For if he had been exposed as a friend to the Medici, he would have been suspect and hated to the people. So in other words, if he did it secretly, in other words, the only way to respond is kind of the people who opposed him turned to the Medici. If he had turned to the Medici, this would have made him a hypocrite, and the people would have suspected him, and that would have been disastrous. So he didn't have the mode that to kind of do this in that sense. This is why you could forgive him in Machiavelli's analysis, because he would have been hated and suspect people. Hence, his enemies would have had much more occasions for crushing him than they had at first. So, in other words, this is the danger. If he had kind of went to the Medicis to kind of challenge their kind of activity of him, he would have been as betrayal of his what he was, That would have been even more weapons. That would have helped them to remove him even more. So this is how Machiavelli ends the example of Pareto, right? Then he turns again to 3. Pardon, I'm coughing. Therefore, in every policy, men should consider its defects and the dangers, and not adapt it if there is more of the dangerous than the useful in it, notwithstanding that a judgment has been given. A judgment has been given of it that conforms to the decision. In other words, a judgment has said we must do this. But the question is, no. Every policy, we should look at it whether how much danger it is and how much benefit. If it's more danger than the benefit, no, you don't do it. Even if all judgment says maybe we should do it. For when they do otherwise, it would happen to them in the case as what happened to Tully, Cicero. Okay, Cicero, who, in wishing to take away favor from Mark Antony, increased it for him. Right. So, in other words, they took away favor of Antony, wishing to take away. They increased it with him. For when Antony had been judged an enemy of the Senate, and had gathered together with that great army in the good part from the soldiers who had followed the party of Caesar, Cicero, so as to take those soldiers from him, urged the Senate to give reputation to Octavian, and to send him with Hithras and Pansa, the consuls, against Mark Antony, alleging that as soon as the soldiers who were following Mark Antony heard the name Octavian, nephew of Caesar, and that he was calling himself Caesar, they would leave him and take the side of the latter. So when Antony was left stripped of the favor, it would be easy to crush him, right? So remember, this is the example that Cicero thought, okay, I'm gonna give support to destroy Antony. I'm going to give support to Octavius, who's calling himself Caesar now, the nephew of Caesar, who's calling himself Caesar, and that that all those people supporting Mark Antony would then abandon him to support him. This affair came out all to the contrary, for Mark Antony gained Octavian to himself, and he, having left Tully, Cicero, and the Senate sided with him. In other words, Octavius sided with Caesar against the Senate and Caesar. This affair was the destruction of the party of the aristocrats. So this is the classic. In other words, Caesar. In other words, they did it, made him great, sent him out there. We went there. Of course, he made a deal. Octavian made a deal with Anthony. Anthony won him the argument. So Machiavelli's account makes him that Anthony won Octavian and turned against both he and Octavian turn against the Cicero and the Senate, and this destroys the Senate. That was easy to conjecture, nor should that of which Cicero, Tilly, persuaded himself, have been believed. But that name that wished so much glory had eliminated its enemies and acquired for itself the principate in Rome, should have always been taken into account. Nor should it have been believed that either from his heirs or his agents anything could be had that would conform to the name of freedom. And for that's the whole point, he says, right? You can't trust that name. It's not going to work. This is from Cicero Philippics 5 and 10, right? So, again, Cicero should have known better. Why did he do this? It was a bad judgment. He should have known that this was a bad thing, and Caesar could not be trusted, and therefore the name could not be trusted in that, or his agents could not be trusted. That you did Octavius like this was a suicidal act in that sense. So therefore, here we end this. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in there, and I respond to them when I see them. If you have liked it, hit the like button, please. It helps the algorithm. It really does. And if you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And again, encourage others to come check the channel out and do it. Now you can do so by sharing the video and sharing. If you liked it, share it far and wide. Encourage others to go check the channel out as well, and encourage them also to subscribe. So again, all these things, commenting, liking, forwarding, sharing, and checking, subscribing, all improve their algorithm for these videos. So hopefully people will come check them out and find them when they're searching. Or now, of course, those of you who didn't like it, you can always thumbs down it, but say why in the comments. What is the reason for this, and maybe you can benefit from this in that sense. Another thing you can do is you want to follow me on social media. The social media links below. If you want to know more about me as a scholar and as a researcher, and check out my publications and things like that, academic publications and the journals and stuff, you can check the links below this academic social media below the social media. And then if you want to help me to do what I do, you want to contribute in that sense, and, because these things cost money, you have to buy new things all the time. Please do so through. You can do so through Subscribestar, Patreon, or by buying one of my books that are available through either your book or maybe a bookstore will order it for you, maybe not. Otherwise, you can do it through a middleman, internet online distributor like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or Libris, Book Depository, or whatever. Or you can order directly from the publisher. Well, that's it. We'll look at the next chapter and next time. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.